We're four misfits who don't belong together, playing for other misfits. They're the outcasts right at the back of the room. We're pretty sure they feel they don't belong either, but we belong to them.
Episode 73, Freddie Mercury is Autistic.
Welcome to the Autistic Culture Podcast. Each episode, we dive deep into autistic contributions to society and culture by introducing you to some of the world's most famous and successful autistics in history.
Before we get started, a quick disclaimer on how we use the word autistic. The purpose of this show is not to diagnose the people or characters we discuss as autistic. While some may have announced being autistic, what we're really sharing here is our observation of what is representative of autistic culture. It can sometimes be difficult for autistic people to celebrate our natural tendencies and traits due to the perception of autism as a disorder that needs to be fixed, a long history of damaging medical interventions to get autistics to fit in with mainstream culture, and protective masking skills many of us have developed to try to stay safe.
Whether you are autistic or just love someone who is, your hosts, Dr. Angela Lauria, the linguistic autistic,
and licensed psychological practitioner Matt Lowry, welcome you to take this time to be fully immersed in the language, values, traditions, norms, and identity of Autistica.
Well, hey, Matt.
Hey, Angela.
What do you know about Freddie Mercury?
I know that he enjoys bicycles, fat-bottomed girls, and he does the fandango.
Does he do the fandango? I do not know the fandango.
Scaramouche does.
Scaramouche, Scaramouche, can you do the fandango? Thunderbolt and lightning. Okay, we're going to get through this.
Me.
Galileo.
I actually sang that with my son in the car, and he kind of kept up with it, and we had and I said, and this is why you call it rock music, because you rock to it, and he started headbanging to yeah, because we did a full on Wayne's World, and I was so proud.
Oh my goodness, and I want to ride my bicycle, and fat bottom girls, you make the rockin' world go round. See more rocking right there. Freddie Mercury, the man, the myth, the legend, was born Farouk Bulsara. Many of us know this from the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, where you meet his immigrant parents who came from Zanzibar. Freddie was born in September of 1946. And I didn't pull these facts, but I'm sure they're somewhere. He has to have been voted 1 million times the best vocalist in the solar system or something like that. So he was piano player, songwriter, and obviously the lead vocalist. I believe he also shook a mean tambourine.
I believe so.
Not sure they voted on that, but 4-octave vocal range. And
4 octaves.
4 octaves. And
what is the average octave vocal range?
Less than 1 if you're me.
Less than 1, you say? Oh, wow.
No, but I think like professionals say that's like an opera level of vocal range.
Wow.
Like professional rock singers really do have like a 2-octave range would be standard. So
that is impressive.
It is very impressive. In the Wikipedia entry, they actually draw his vocal range using like a musical scale.
Yeah.
And so it's like 1 note at the bottom and 1 note at the top. And then you can see all the notes he can sing, but I don't read music enough to know what that meant. So I'm sure it was impressive. I don't know what it meant.
Some sort of impressive pictogram showing things of some sort. Yes, correct. I'm there with you. Yes.
Yes, correct. I didn't say this yet, but this goes without saying, but we have people of all generations listening to this show. He was the lead singer of a band called Queen. So Queen sings a bunch of songs. Matt and I mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody, which is probably the number 1 there. Queen formed in 1970. They went on to play until Freddie died in 1991. He died of AIDS. We'll talk about that a little. It's not my main focus of how he represents autistic culture today. but we'll mention it a little bit. Queen has gone on to continue to play without Freddie with various replacement singers like Adam Lambert. We're not going to talk about all that today, but they are still around even today. And
Brian May is an astrophysicist.
And Brian May is an astrophysicist, and the drummer, Roger Taylor, is a dentist. I don't think he ever practiced, but they went to school for astrophysics, dentists, and Freddie Mercury went to school for graphic design. And there is a very cool Queen logo. Look it up now if you've never seen it. Do you know what the Queen logo represents? I didn't know this till researching.
What does it represent?
Each of their astrology signs.
Really?
It's very cute. So
I had no idea.
2 Leos, a Gemini, and something else. And if you look at it, not Gemini, the Virgo. I think Freddie Mercury is a Virgo, and he has 2 little fairies, I think, representing the Virgo. So,
oh my God, wow, that I had no idea. That is fascinating.
I love it.
Wow.
Okay, Mercury wrote a lot of their big hits. So he wrote Killer Queen. He obviously wrote Bohemian Rhapsody. He wrote Somebody to Love. He wrote We Are the Champions, Don't Stop Me Now, Crazy Little Thing Called Love. And in the UK, and I hadn't seen this, songs. They're all amazing songs. One of his top hits in the UK is a cover of the Platters 50 song, The Great Pretender.
I know that. Yes. Oh, that's a good one.
Do you know his version?
Yes. Oh, God,
I did not know his version.
Wow.
It's an ode to autistic masking. We're going to talk about it later. So if you're interested in masking, you will love Freddie Mercury's version of "Oh Yes, I'm the Great Pretender."
Yeah, I swear to God. Have you ever seen the videos where they just eliminate the music and only have Freddie Mercury's vocals?
No.
I mean, it will give you chills. They take away all the music and it's just him singing a cappella. And oh my God, the man could sing the phone book and it will give you chills. So, yeah.
For sure. So I liked Queen because I'm 51 years old and I think it was just required in my generation.
Yeah.
But one of the things that made me fall in love with my husband is that he had a special interest and a little museum to Freddie Mercury in his home when I went there for the first time. And I learned early on in my dating career, I should never, ever, 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 ever talk about Crowded House, because that was always my last date with people. When I would talk about my special interest band, they looked at me like I was crazy when I needed to go into the details of the different sound mixers and the different producers and what pants Neil was wearing on what day and which bootlegs were the best bootlegs. And I saw their eyes glaze over and it was like, never, ever talk about this. This is embarrassing. Be embarrassed of your special interest. And Paul didn't not mention Queen. Like maybe he was wearing a Queen shirt. I don't know. Maybe it came up, but he was like, oh yeah, I like Queen. They're good. And then I saw his museum and I was like, oh, I can show him my museum. He will laugh at me. And then I asked him questions about Queen and then I was in love and I got, it wasn't my special interest, but over the years, like he has another special interest band, which is They Might Be Giants. And which is, we should probably do an episode on them too. And so it's always been a really happy spot for me to put on Queen or They Might Be Giants. And like, I like those bands, so it's fine. I will say when I put on Crowded House, he looks very annoyed. And when I asked if he wanted to go to a Crowded House concert with me, he said, I would go if you don't have anyone else to go with. So I don't think the love affair is, maybe he likes other things about me. He is definitely not digging my special interest. So I just want to say, like, I talk about info dumping a lot and I think it's a great way to connect. Mm-hmm. But I've had like parents and other people email me and be like, what do you do if you do not want to hear about your kid's fascination with Fortnite? Like, I don't want to hear another V-Buck story. It's so boring. And
that's so sad.
What I will say about that, like my experience with that is I don't care what the topic is. We can talk about like German tanks. Like, I don't care. Another one of my husbands is the Civil War and I really don't care. But I
he's
love
English and he likes the American
the
Civil
American
War.
Civil War. Yeah, it's fascinating, right?
That's fascinating. Yeah, it is. It's like us, I don't know.
Well, he likes battles in general. He has like this 20,000 page book called like Famous Battles in History, starting with, I don't know, whatever, cavemen. And he
clearly
can tell
written by
you
a
all of
neurotypical.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
He can tell you every single one, the dates, who is in it. Like, ask him the middle name of, a dictator from the 1500s. I'm sure he can tell, like 100% sure. That was an easy one.
Oh, yeah. As is the way.
I love how he loves it.
Yes, that's when you vibe with the passion of the info dump, that's where the joy lies.
Right.
Because
you don't have to like the topic. You have to like the person.
You latch on to that and go on a wild, nerdy ride, and that's where the joy comes in.
But every once in a while, you obtain a new special interest. It's the bonus special interest virus that is sometimes passed along. And if there was going to be any special interest that got passed along for my husband to me, I'll tell you, it would not be the Civil War. Probably wouldn't even be They Might Be Giants, but it could definitely be Freddie Mercury, because that voice.
Freddie Mercury was a rock god, still is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there are very few musicians in the world that I can say that I am a genuine, gigantic fan of. Freddie Mercury is one of them. I have every song Queen ever had. I will listen to it. I will pass that on proudly to my kids. I mean, honestly, it is fantastic. So yes, I very much look forward to your info dump today.
When autistic people find a special interest, they go deep and have a lot of knowledge, even if they don't have that formal education background to go with it. If you want to capture your spin in a book, check out Angela's work at differencepress.com, differencepress.com, and find out more about becoming an author and establishing your credibility with a book.
Okay, so we're gonna start off. It's like the radio. So I'm gonna ask you to describe an image I'm going to put up on the screen in as much detail as you can for our listeners who are not looking at this picture.
There is a man having a non-consensual relationship with a pole.
That is true. Who is the man, and describe his body shape?
A very, very lean, flexible man who is capable of stretching beyond that of an average human.
Yes, this is the back bend that went around the world. I'm going to show you a couple more pictures.
Flexible man.
Yes. Okay, two more pictures here. The first one, you saw a very intense back bend. What are these two pictures of?
Here is a man, most likely Freddie Mercury. Is that a Flash Gordon t-shirt?
It is. He did the whole Flash Gordon.
Flash!
Yes. He did the soundtrack. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Again, my friend William Hootkins was in that movie. And again, long time special interest. I think that Ted, Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane is probably autistic. But anyway.
Definitely, and I love him.
Yes, he has short shorts, and his legs are sort of bowing outwards, like maybe a tree trunk. That is
they
interesting.
Aren't they? And what do you notice in the next picture?
Legs don't well, I can see fists, but it's not scrolled up quite enough yet.
Oh, hold on. I give you some more. Can you see what those elbows are doing?
Oh my God. What? Arms should not bend that way.
No, because
arms are bending out.
Our friend Freddie is hypermobile.
Apparently so. Oh my God.
He has a back that does things that other people's backs don't do. He's got knees that are very EDS looking, Ehlers-Danlos syndrome looking. His elbows go the opposite directions that one might expect an elbow to go. And just from the three pictures I have shown you, we have 4 points on the needed 9 to classify him on the Baton scale that is used to determine EDS.
Wow.
I got you to 9 points and beyond. We got a guy with EDS. I'm going to spend a minute on Ehlers-Danlos, but I need your help with this.
Would his vocal cords also be hyperflexible? Could that be a
We're
reason?
going to talk about it.
Oh, good. Yeah, because
It's
I don't know
different,
anything
but I'm
about
going to
vocal
get to
cords.
that. But before
Okay.
we get to that, I had a conversation with friend of the pod, Toby Walters, and she told me, hi, Toby. She told me EDS and hypermobility are actually the same thing. I was like, oh, I don't think my kid has EDS. He just has hypermobility syndrome. And she's like, my friend.
Ha!
No. So I'm not enough of an expert on this, but what is your knowledge here on the EDS hypermobility world?
I know that there are 13 types of EDS, ranging from ligament to gastrointestinal to cardiological. All of these things about the connective tissue being less connective than most people. So our bodies do wonky things. Our health, and this is a reason why POTS is so highly tied to like mast cell and EDS, because it's all about how the vascular system is not working in the way that it's intended to work, because vascular EDS causes a lot of problems with that. And if your heart isn't pumping blood and your arteries and veins aren't constricting the way that they need to do it, it can cause some major health issues. So there's visible EDS where, especially like if you have like stretchy skin and you can pull your skin up and shake it around a little bit. Bend your hands all the way back.
And the people, I like to mention my age in every episode, but people are always like, you're 51. Yes, me and my stretchy skin are 51. Thank you. I look young for my age. You're welcome.
Oh, yeah.
So
I if anyone knew me in high school, they knew that I got in the yearbook because I am hypermobile myself. I back before I got old, because I feel very old now. I was able to pop my hips in and out of their sockets on command, and I am still able to turn my feet around 180 degrees.
Yeah, so that freaks me out.
I got in my yearbook because I went to the bathroom, put all my clothes on backwards, and started walking down the hall with my feet backwards, and it looked like my head was around 180 degrees. And I scared the hell out of a substitute teacher. She dropped all of her stuff in the hallway, ran off, and never came back. So I got in my yearbook for that.
Well done.
Oh yeah, my claim to fame.
Well, whatever hypermobility that one is, Freddie had one of the versions that includes hyperdontia. Have you ever heard this phrase?
Dontia, is that a mouth thing?
Yes. So, okay, so he has obviously hyperextended knees and elbows, and his back hyperextends. But one of the traits of some versions of EDS is extra teeth. And there's a fun NHS, not NHS, God, I've lost my mind, NIH study on this, on hyperdontia and EDS. I'm going to include it in the show notes for those of you who have been wondering why you have those extra teeth. Freddie Mercury was born with 4 extra incisors.
Really? Oh, wow. Oh.
And what this did is it created, so it's not, you were looking for stretchy vocal cords. It's actually not that, although he might have that too. But what happened with him is his upper jaw, because of the extra teeth, is expanded, and it looked like he had buck teeth and he got made fun of for it. But because of that raised upper palate, he has an extended vocal range.
Wow.
And that's how he gets to the 4 octaves. So one of the reasons why Freddie Mercury is so amazing is a direct result of the traits of autism.
Wow, that's neat.
How about that? So autistic culture, born in Zanzibar, imported to the UK, and now around the world as one of the greatest rock legends of all time.
That is impressive.
Yes. But EDS is not my only aspect of autism traits that led to the culture that I want to share with. There are many to come, but I thought that this line was pretty awesome. It's in the film, but it's quoted a lot. And Freddie Mercury notoriously hated interviews. And we're going to talk about this more later, right?
Who doesn't?
But in one interview, I want to say it's like a German music reporter. She might have been Dutch, but a European rock music performer says something as the leader of the band. As the leader of Queen, what's the price of tea in China? Whatever she asks him. And Freddie Mercury, as soon as she says, as the leader of Queen, immediately cuts her off. You could see this around the 1 hour, 20-minute mark in the movie. And he says, I'm not the leader of Queen. I'm only the lead singer. Duh.
Yeah.
Hello. So one of the things that drove him nuts about interviews, and he talked about this frequently, is like how dumb the questions were. And he couldn't, he was just like, but why are you assuming because I am the lead singer, I am the lead of the band? Who said that? Where do you see that? What part of lead singer means leader of the band? And so he got his knickers in a knot because literal interpretation.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so, and some justice sensitivity there because if he wants to, throw his fellow dentist and astrophysicist a bone there. So,
No, that's exactly right. And people were like, he's an egomaniac. It's his band. And he's like, do you even fucking know me, bruh? Yeah. Like he's like, nobody knows who I am. Why would you think you think I'm the leader of the band? I'm the leader of the band. That's what you've come up with because I sing and I have a hypermobile back. So I do big back bends at Wembley Stadium. So you're like, well, he must be in charge. He does a mean back bend. Like
that's how we judge most of our leaders here in the free world. But yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay. But I'm going to give you a little more backstory on some of the amazing aspects. Backstory. See what I did there?
There you go.
Little dad joke for you. Freddie's first spin that we know about, his first special interest. It is a classic. It is one from the autistic culture. We haven't done an episode on it, but it is the autistic culture hallmark. Do you know what it is?
I was hoping it's Trains, but we already did that one.
We did Trains. It's not Trains, but it's in there.
Oh man, I don't know. We've did Trains, Horses. Haven't done Electric Towers yet. Was he into Electric Towers?
He was not into Electric Towers. Well, he might have been because his favorite movie was Rocky Horror, which we'll talk about later. And there was a great Electric Tower in Rocky Horror.
There is indeed.
It was Stamps.
Oh, of course, Stamps.
Those are our people.
Oh, Maisie, if you're listening, you're on there for us. Yeah, so yeah, Stamps.
What? There's another word for it, but Philately. It was like when Becca Laurie Hector told me she was an auraphile. I was like, oh no, I have no idea what that is, but is it like some weird aura thing? No, it's a cat. It's a cat thing. I think Stamps is like philatity or something like that. It's got a word. That's probably Greek in origin. Oh. So this was his big interest from 9 to 12 years old. What is it? Do you know what it is?
It looks like philately. P-H-I-L-A-T-E-L-Y.
It's got to be. I'm in the middle of reading an etymology book. There's got to be some Greek action there.
That is very, very interesting. Yeah. Interested about the postal delivery. I think this, my son qualifies for this. It was coined in 1864 by a Frenchman, Georges Herpin. I probably mangled that. Who invented it from the Greek philos, love, and echolalia, that which is tax-free.
Oh, how funny. How funny is that? I knew it was Greek, but I wouldn't have guessed that which is tax-free. I think it is a tax. Anyway. All right, that which is tax-free.
The episodes as of late have taken some very odd turns. I love that. It's very exciting.
We're evolving as a show.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. This was his thing in 1956. So basically from 1955 to about 1961. And what there was not between 1955 and 1961 was Pokemon. And so because there was not Pokemon, he had to find something to catch all of.
Of
So
course.
he decided he was going to catch them all, get all of the stamps from all the British Commonwealth countries. He was an absolutist. Zanzibar was one of the British territories. So that was his focus. He did a little bit in Eastern Europe, a lot of Zanzibar. But also, remember I told you he went to school for graphic design?
Yes.
So, and you know how autistic people love a museum.
Of course.
He didn't just like get the stamp book from, I don't know, the bank or whatever and put his stamps in there. He would design the layout.
Oh, wow.
Of the stamps. So that was like his early graphic design was, how do I display these stamps so other people fully appreciate them? So he was like, how can I get the symmetry and the color and blank space on the page? And it was all about display, but also he had to have every single stamp. I'm sure this drove his parents a little bit nutty. Had to catch them all. In fact,
Kinsey would love this display. Yes.
Right. There wasn't bugs, but he had the stamp display. Kinsey was lining up. Kinsey's like, why wouldn't everybody curate a collection and line it up for all others to come and see?
Yeah, this is the way.
As we know from the Questlove episode, in autistic culture, the greatest accomplishment, the greatest prize, it's not OB, it's not being knighted, it's not the Congressional Medal of Honor. It is having your collection selected by a major museum.
Oh, yes. Oh, because it means that your collection is the best, like no one ever was.
Right. I want to be the best. And that happened to Freddie. The Postal Museum in London selected his stamp collection. And when you come to England and we have a family visit in jolly old Blimey, we will go to the Postal Museum and we will celebrate the collection of Freddie Mercury's stamps.
My son loves all things post office, so I mean, we that is absolutely a need. That and the Eiffel Tower, we will have an autistic centered time.
Love it.
We may have to go to Paris Disneyland, but yes,
it's very close. There's a train that will take you there.
Oh, goddamn!
So easy.
Yes, please.
Okay, so spin number 1, check, best in the world. He is going to get best in the world on his spins. This is a man who was committed.
Of course.
Next up, his next spin we're going to talk about is kitty cats. Speaking of aurophiles, he was a devoted cat dad to Dorothy, Tiffany, Tom, Jerry, Delilah, Goliath, Lily, Miko. I have a Miko, Oscar, and Romeo.
That's awesome.
Those were Freddie's 10 cats. Now,
not just one cat. An entire clouder. Yes.
Correct. There were a few things these cats had as being Freddie's cats. The first is an official portrait. So just like kings and queens and presidents, all of his cats were subject to sessions with professional portraitists to immortalize them. Pictures of these cats have sold for millions.
Wow.
These are incredible portraits, as you can imagine, since he is also an artist and has a lot of aesthetic rules for his life. He also never, ever fed his cats boxed or canned food.
No,
he had a chef for his cats, and they received meals of chicken and fish prepared daily by the cat chef.
That's awesome.
Every Christmas, all of Freddie's cats would receive personalized and customized gifts on Christmas morning. There would be a tree and a full display. Don't say being a furry parent is not the same as being a parent. These were definitely his kids. And his best friend, I'm going to give you a little quote. I said best friend, but it's not his best friend, but a good friend who was his biographer and loyal. His name is Peter Freestone. This is what he said.
Freddie had more concern about his cats than humans. His cats were his babies. He would do anything for his cats. On the last tour, I was at his home, and every 2 or 3 days he would ring and he would want to talk to a cat. Freddie always said, "You can own dogs, but cats own you." Yeah.
Comments, thoughts.
That
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, that is a man who loves his cats, and he would have enjoyed the cat episode because, yeah, that is the way.
Yes. So a true cat parent. There are several people in his life who have talked about holding cats up to the phone. Keep in mind, if you are picturing like Zoom or FaceTime video, no, my friends, this is the 70s and 80s. They're holding a cat to the phone receiver.
Meow.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
All of this while on the road and missing his favorite cat, Delilah, led Freddie to write a song, one of Queen's greatest hits. It's called Innuendo. Share with us this lyric, will you?
When you, and I will try not to sing, when you curl up and sleep with me, and then you make me a little crazy when you pee on my Chippendale sofa.
That was true. Delilah had an issue. She peed on his Chippendale sofa a lot.
Again, when you hear the song, you think it's about a woman, and you think, "Oh, that's a little odd," but yeah, it's that makes more sense now. That's neat.
Yeah, that's the innuendo. It's about Delilah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I thought it was about David Bowie, but yeah, now it makes much more sense knowing that's about a cat. But yes.
So there are some spins that we might have that would require more money than we have. So like stamps can be expensive, cats can be expensive, but now we will move on to the Freddie is a rich guy portion of the spins.
Has a urine-stained Chippendale sofa.
Yes, many urine-stained Chippendale sofas. So Freddie, this is a little weird, and it's weird to talk about considering maybe some of our political beliefs personally, but Freddie was very straightforward about the fact he wanted to make lots of money. Like he was very, very money focused and made many decisions based on money. And that was because this was a man who had very expensive hobbies. He needed many homes for his museums. He had many museums. Most of his close... Go ahead.
Cat chefs are not cheap.
Cat chefs are not cheap, and he did not want to, skimp on quality. When he died, he gave pretty much everyone in his inner circle their own house. That was like his gift of choice. So, and some people, although, by the way, his main house, which is very famous in a museum, it's called like Garden House or something like that, he did give to his cats. That was gifted to his cats. So he said his best friend and partner, Mary, could live there as long as she was alive, as long as she took care of her cats and all the cats and acknowledged that it was their house. Because obviously cats own us. So,
yeah.
Okay, so Freddie got into Japanese art. So exquisite Japanese objects like the sudden shower over Shinashi Bridge, and Ataki, the Edo era woodblock print from 1857, which he got from Sotheby's in 1977, sold to a client on the phone for 300,000 pounds, 298,000 pounds. So at the time, about $500,000 in 1977. So first big payday, he's out there buying wood blocks. A stage-worn kimono from 1976, which sold for 57,000 pounds. Kashuhitu's swimming carp screen, you would recognize this one. So many of these. were a part of his incredible collection. Many of them Freddie got through Sotheby's, and then they were sold through Sotheby's in a huge 2023 auction called Freddie Mercury, A World of His Own.
I remember that, yeah.
It was pretty amazing. 140,000 fans visited Sotheby's to see the exhibitions. It was set up like a museum.
Yes, it should be, yes.
Just his Japanese art collection garnered about 3 million pounds. It was absolutely incredible. People showed up at that event dressed like Freddie or Freddie inspired costumes. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. I'll put it in the show notes. I'm going to give you some numbers. 2,340 bids were placed.
Wow.
And 8,888 coffees were sold in the cafe on the night of the auction, which is pretty amazing. At the auction, I don't know if this was sold or gave away. I'm going to guess they gave away food. Like they had food at the auction for people who got a paddle. They gave away 348 servings of fat bottom prawns, fat bottom shrimp. Okay.
We need our friend with the shrimp. That's more good shrimp humor. Oh God,
I mean, right. We need Daniel Carroll's Shrimp or Autistic. We can have fat bottom prawns at one of our next weddings. I don't know.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it.
They had a 1,200 foot, which I guess is maybe a quarter of a mile, line to get into the exhibit.
Oh my God.
Which is pretty amazing.
Unexpected, yeah, because I mean it's Freddie Mercury. But yes, go on.
But why didn't they expect it? I don't know. They had a book. So if you went to check out the exhibit, they had a book. They sold 17,000 copies of that book. They sold 23 Freddie Mercury cat suits. How much would you love to have that in a glass case in your house?
Oh my God.
Maybe not your house, but a house. My husband's house for sure.
Yeah.
23 cat suits. This would freak me out. I don't understand it. I don't think you will either, but they had lots of Freddie Mercury's clothes in this, and they were able to measure his waist size. He had a 24-inch waist.
What?
I don't understand.
Where did he keep his organs? What?
Not enough room. What? Huh? Why?
Oh my.
What?
Wow.
I'm
think
like,
that's
typo?
the size of one of my arms. Wow.
Right. Oh, definitely a thigh for me for sure. Like Disney, maybe not even a thigh. So,
wow.
Okay.
Oh.
All right, skinny mini. I don't know what to tell you, but that's what's going on there. So
a very small man. Wow.
So we got cats, we got art, we got postage stamps, and of course, his lifelong career spin of music. One of his former bandmates from his band before Queen said the only music he listened to and played was Western pop as a kid. A friend recalled his uncanny ability to listen to the radio and instantly replay whatever he heard on piano.
Oh, echolalia. Neat.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah, it could, or echopraxia, depending on,
Right.
Yeah.
Do your fingers tell you where to go on the keys? Very interesting.
I guess it would depend on, because that's the thing, not being a musically oriented person, I would, given the fact that other people feel music as a language and can, speak music with their fingers, it seems like that, like echopraxic sort of activity, to hear this language of music and be able to replicate that language of music. Because if we hear like the sound of a train and we go woo woo, we're not repeating it with a train whistle, we're repeating it with our biological method. So if you can play music with your hands or mouth and you hear music, then you should be able, in theory, to use the same mechanism to do that. So that's neat.
So there might be a component of like perfect pitch in there too.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, whoop, whoop, that's obviously an F sharp major and I will play it on an oboe. Like if you knew what that was. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, obviously, maybe not obviously. Obviously, if you're married to my husband, you know that Freddie was very into opera.
Oh, yeah.
I say obviously because of Bohemian Rhapsody, but
Yeah.
also
Yeah, a mini operetta.
Yeah, and he did an album with a famous opera diva called Montserrat Caballé. The album's called Barcelona. It's amazing. And he really wanted to he wanted to do it because it was fun, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But he wanted to he was super fanboy over her. Like, she was his autistic special interest. He was super goofy, super nervous when he met her. She really was like miles and miles beyond his skill. Like, she is a virtuoso. She's incredible. And he knew it. And what he wanted, and I'd love you to riff on autistic generosity, but he was like, so many of my fans don't know anything about opera. They don't know her. So he wanted to give his fans the gift of her, but really he wanted her to be as rich and famous as he was. And opera has a fraction of stars. 75% of the buyers of that album were Queen fans first, and he wanted to give his celebrity crush special interest that gift. I feel like we're very generous culture, don't you?
I believe it. I know I do a lot of things to help my friends out, and I want to amplify their voices. So, yeah, it's the kind of thing that I would have done. So I like to believe that it's part of us.
Yeah. He also did a cool thing with the ballet, lifelong interest in the ballet. We did our Meat Body Maintenance episode with a circus performer who is very flexible, strong and flexible. Yes.
Ironically, one of my friends that I wanted to give a voice to. So, hey.
Oh, yes. Good example. Speaking of generous.
Hey, Andrelyn.
Yes. Hello, Andrelyn. I'll put the link to that show in the show notes. But we've done a belly dance show now. We've done the circus show. We haven't done a ballet show. Liz, there could be something to this. Ooh. Super strong, super flexible, right? Those are some of the features of EDS. Often they come with strength that doesn't match what the muscles look like.
Yeah, and your body literally rips itself apart because the muscles are stronger than the connective tissue that holds them together.
And Andrelyn shared some of that with circus performers and what that leads to, because that's extra meat body maintenance.
Oh, yeah.
Freddie Mercury, also obsessed with ballet, gets invited in October of 1979 to perform with the Royal Ballet.
Wow.
And he did Bohemian Rhapsody and Crazy Little Thing Called Love. You can find this on YouTube. I'm going to put it in the show notes. There's something really weird about it I want to explain. This was hours and hours of discussion between my husband and I this week. When you see this video, it's very low quality. There's like one recording of this that's out there. And you will hear Bohemian Rhapsody and Crazy Little Thing Called Love. The dance is amazing. Freddie's amazing. There's a big deal made that he did all this ballet dance while singing and performing live.
Wow.
They had the orchestra there and he was singing. But when you watch the only recording that is left, that is publicly available, there might be one in a museum somewhere. It's not being performed live. It's the recording from the album.
Oh.
So we couldn't figure it out. We're like, why does every book we have, every movie we watch, we probably watched 20 this week, why does everybody say this was performed live, but we're watching the video and this shit is not live?
Yeah.
What we think, and if you know, please come to autisticculturepodcast.com and put this in the comments. What we think is the quality of the video was so bad that you couldn't hear the audio well. So they overdubbed the audio with the recorded version. Which would kind of make sense, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and especially if you're in a noisy auditorium or like your friend next to you is talking all the way through it, you'd have to replace it.
Nobody had handy cams because it's 1979.
Yeah.
So nobody was recording it on their phone. That didn't exist. There was like one camera. I don't know who brought it. It might not have even had a microphone on it. It was very low quality. You can barely see it. But I am told he sang and did ballet, which is crazy town. Like,
yeah.
Not an easy feat.
That's not a thing that human bodies are meant to do.
No. And he was super into this idea that at the end of Bohemian Rhapsody, he would be held upside down. So he does like a leap and goes into an upside down pose and sings that any way the wind blows. He sings that upside down in the
Holy
performance.
Crap.
It's crazy. It's so crazy.
Wow.
Yes.
Now I gotta look that up. That is astounding.
It's really, really good.
We love sharing stories of autistic culture. And if you are seeing yourself in any of these stories and you're wondering if maybe you're one of us, or maybe you're already diagnosed or self-diagnosed, and you want to know if Matt can help you live your life better and be more authentically autistic, check out his website at mattlowrylpp.com. That's Matt, M-A-T-T, Lowry, L-O-W-R-Y. And then that LPP, it stands for Licensed Psychological Practitioner. So head on over to mattlowrylpp.com and learn more about working with my buddy Matt.
So that takes me to a little Bohemian Rhapsody conversation I want to have, which is when that song was recorded. This is bottom-up processing. It is pattern matching. Freddie Mercury came up with this idea. You might be too young to remember this, but maybe not because you're a film guy. Do you remember taping over things?
Huh.
So you would like record something, and then I remember with cassette tapes, if the little tabs broke off and you couldn't record, you could put like Scotch tape over the heads so that you could record over it. So you would have the sound of music, and then you would put tape over it, and then you would record the sound of talking, and you wouldn't hear the music under it.
Yeah.
Right? You would record over it and you'd use that tape. And if you recorded too many things, the tape would get thin and you wouldn't be able to, you'd solve the tracking problems on the VHS.
Yeah.
But it was possible. Freddie came up with this idea. He's like, no, I want to keep the sound of music there. Then I want to layer on the sound of talking. So I just want to rewind the tape and record something on top of it. And then I want to rewind the tape and record something on top of it without taking away the other recording. Does this make sense?
Like multi-track recording.
Yes. So he comes up with this idea to keep recording over and over. And what you hear in Bohemian Rhapsody is 300 overlays.
I was wondering about that because, again, it's ethereal. So, it is really, really impressive.
But do it in your head. 300 overlays. The tape almost broke. There was like a guy who saved the day because he saved the tape. But like he saw, think of the pattern matching. Like if you sang Happy Birthday and you asked me to put anything over it right now, I do not have musical pattern matching. Like I don't know. I could not come up with, I don't know, jingling a pocket of change. I would not know what to put over Happy Birthday to make it sound good. Then do it 300 times and be like, oh, if we add another one, yeah, that'll sound good. Oh no, let's add another one. That'll sound good.
And then
there is a master recording. You can't go delete it. Do you get it? You can't just be like, oh, delete that layer. It's not digital. It is a piece of tape.
You have to have it completely perfect every single time, hundreds of times in a row. Wow.
He could literally hear the song coming together as he created. He's like, oh, that's the 289th layer. I got 290. Let's add this.
Wow.
So I do this thing when I'm writing books, which is a straight up pattern matching thing.
Yeah.
I get a whole bunch of Post-it notes, like one Post-it pad, and I'll write one or two words on about 50 Post-it notes. And then I can move the Post-it notes around and completely rewrite the book. So if you're like, no, the book is for kids, I'll pull some off, or it's for parents, I'll move some over. But with like 50 Post-it notes, I can see a whole book. And then once I have that up on a wall, it takes me about 3 days to write a book. The last one I just did was 2 days. So as soon as I see it, I'm like, oh yes, I know the whole book now. It just, I know it.
Oh, well, this is the concept that George Lucas and ILM used to create Edit Droid, which is the modern video editing software, because that way you do get to have a visual thing where you can move things around and edit things, because again, that's the autistic way. That's how we perceive things. So it's kind of neat.
What would Eddie Mercury? Nope, different guy. What would Freddie Mercury? Yeah. I just did Eddie Murphy and Freddie Mercury in my head at the same time.
Oh my God, that's a fantastic character.
Right? Eddie Mercury. Oh, it's very good. So what would he have created now with like editing software like that? Those harmonies. God. And this dude could barely read music. Like he did not learn, he learned music by ear.
That's
and by
amazing.
Listening and perfect pitch and whatever.
Wow.
Just like mind blowing when it's your special interest and you have those pattern matching skills and then you practice it and you think about what Sherlock Holmes could do for solving crimes or what Questlove can do with like beats per minute and for hours and hours and hours playing track after track that fit together. It's like that is such an incredible gift of our culture.
Yes.
That you could see if you didn't have confidence going into that, you could easily be talked out of by other people. Like, that's a stupid idea. You're going to break the tape. It's not going to work.
Like, what are you doing? How could you possibly think of all that? That's madness. Freddie, no. But you know, the bottom up data processing demands it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and what Queen was doing was not popular. Everybody thought they were a joke band. They never got a good review in New Musical Express, NME, which was like the big music magazine. Everyone thought Freddie was like so silly and camp. They are not seen as credible musicians, but what they were all doing, and I could be talking about how amazing Brian May is as a guitarist. There's legions of information there. But what Freddie was doing as a vocalist and a lyricist and a songwriter had just never been done before.
Yeah.
But they really had to sell themselves. So they talked to a producer early on in their career, and this conversation is replicated. They're talking to John Reed, and they, in the movie, they replicate this, but my husband's super fan says this is not just true, because who knows if it's true, it's a movie, whatever, but definitely true to his experience as a lifelong Queen fan through this. So the agent asked them, like, why should I sign you? How are you different than any other wannabe rock stars that I could sign? And this is what Freddie Mercury says.
We're four misfits who don't belong together, playing for other misfits. They're the outcasts right at the back of the room. We're pretty sure they feel they don't belong either, but we belong to them. Much like cats.
Much like cats. I love that so much. I remember the first time when I was diagnosed and I was skeptical about my diagnosis. I didn't want to take up room or space. I was like, I have a job. Like, whatever, don't need services. This can't really apply to me. And I wasn't like sure what to do about my diagnosis. And the first thing I found is Alex Planck's Wrong Planet. And I was like, wait, other people feel like they were born on the wrong planet? Somebody made a website called Wrong Planet? I'm not the only person that thinks they're on the wrong planet? Are they on my planet? What planet are these people on?
That's awesome.
And that feeling as a fan, like, oh, I could just picture like my husband as a little kid he went through a lot of really hard stuff and didn't feel like he fit in. And then hearing this music and feeling like, oh, this is for me. It was like the wrong planet for him before internet forums existed.
That's awesome.
I know people still feel that way. One of my favorite stories about Queen is their I Want to Break Free music video.
Oh, yes. Oh,
do you know this one?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Go for it.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, okay, in this one, Freddie Mercury. It's very hard to do this without singing, right?
Seriously, I mean, oh my God, it's just
I want to break free.
Echolalia going on there, so I have to repeat it in my head. Echolalia out loud. So yes, please.
If you're singing along too, that's fine. You can even pause, head over to your favorite music player, play this video, watch it on video. Go to YouTube. It'll be worth it. You'll see Freddie Mercury in drag wearing a large upright wig and a pink sweater vest with protruding nipples that I don't really understand, and a tight leather short skirt and stockings and high heels. And Deacon and May and Taylor are all in drag as a schoolgirl, a grandmother, and I don't know, somebody in like pink pajamas, some lady in rollers that just woke up as Brian May in the pink pajamas, I think. You see this, whether you are autistic or trans or any sort of misfit, you're like, oh, they made this for me. Thank you for making this for me. I appreciate that. I was on the Reddit, the subreddit Ask Transgender, and Anamika Girl for Sure posted this. Matt, will you share their quote?
Queen's I Want to Break Free is so fucking relatable. Oh, good Lord, the music video. I just watched it, and holy shit, it was as if it was made especially for oppressed people.
Here's why, Amika Girl for Sure. It was especially made for oppressed people.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if anybody's gender nonconforming, it's Freddie Mercury.
Right. And like, here's the thing is like, oh God, I have a terrible personal story / confession. I was in a mentorship with Richard Branson for 18 months. I have lots of great things to say about Richard Branson. I wrote a book about the experience, which you could find. It's called Make 'Em Beg to Work for You. And it's about being a neurodivergent boss. And I worked with Richard on this. He's ADHD, and we talked about ADHD and autism and how that affects being a leader. Lots of great things to say about Richard, but here's a not good one. I was with him on, I think it was either 2018 or 2019 on Halloween. And the theme was 80s Halloween. I dressed up as Madonna.
Oh, yeah.
And we thought that would be fun to do with Richard. And he came in drag. And it was so fucking offensive. It was like straight out of the drag from the 70s and 80s that were like mocking gay people. Richard is very gender conforming. And it was like, he kept asking us to like put lipstick on him. And he was like asking everyone for their lipstick. And just like, I'm sure he really liked it, but he was just like doing like a gay voice from the 70s or 80s.
A fake Paul Lynde sort of thing.
Yeah.
Extra lisp, etc.
Now, I don't know why I Want to Break Free reads different to me, because that was the era. Like, I know why Richard Branson did that. He's a man of a certain age. He was born at the same time as Freddie Mercury. Like, but when Freddie does it, even the way that Deacon and Taylor and May do it, it does not offend my soul. And by the way, if it does offend you, especially if you're trans, please put it in the comment. And I super apologize if I'm not getting it. But to me, it felt like it was done in a different way than the way they made fun of like Jack Tripper on Three's Company in that time period. Who was it? Mr. Roper that would always call him like light in his loafers. It didn't feel like that horrible, bigoted 70s and 80s homophobia.
Yeah, Three's Company was an interesting premise for a sitcom in that regard of, pretending to be a closeted gay man or pretending to be an openly gay man, but he was
Right.
definitely not. Yeah.
But then definitely not. Yeah,
Yeah.
Anyway. So anyway, if it offends you, definitely let us know. We want to hear about it. I think it's beautifully done, and clearly so did Amika Girl for sure. So I wanted a trans voice to be heard on that. So for two things we hear about Freddie, that he was either bisexual or gay. I suspect he was simply like pan and non-conforming to labels in any sort of way with his sexuality.
That's the thing about being a rock star. You have options.
Yeah, he had options. That was for sure.
He had several options. He was not limited to any particular group of people. So, if they said, "Hi, I'm Freddie Mercury. Would you like to hook up?" Inevitably, the answer, yes. So, yes.
Maybe yes. He definitely loved sex. He, in one of his biographies that I read, which is Somebody to Love, he is quoted as saying he is a self-confessed bisexual. But I heard so many other interviews, even late into the 80s, where a journalist would interview him and maybe say, like, how come you haven't gotten married? And he would be like, just haven't met the right girl. Or like things like that, like not even the pronoun game. Like he would be like, and then the love of his life and the song Love of My Life, that song is written about Mary Austin, who he was engaged to, was in a romantic relationship with. Eventually, that relationship did not survive romantically, but he did leave about half of his estate to her.
Oh.
So that was the love of his life for sure. I do think playing with commitment, monogamy, gender, sexuality, that is definitely a big part of our culture and what gives us kind of some broader scope.
Yeah. Not being limited by boxes, because the boxes are largely conforming, and because we don't conform to a lot of society, it's hard for us to conform to those boxes.
Yeah. But Freddie, like I said, he was very famous for this cover of The Great Pretender. I love this video too. So another video recommendation for you while you're over there watching I Want to Break Free. Go ahead and look up The Great Pretender. He's got, I don't know, dozens, hundreds, many, kind of like life-size cardboard cutouts of his various costumes through the year. And he puts his face in like each of them, like a hole, like a costume with a hole. And he is the great pretender to pretending like his whole life and his whole career. He was trying on all these costumes.
Wow.
And each album was like a change in direction and style. Sometimes he had a short hair and a mustache. Sometimes he had long black hair. He had this white kind of butterfly costume that was like this white frilly shirt, pleated shirt by Zandra Rhodes that he would wear. You've seen it a million times. Sometimes it was like tight jeans and a tight t-shirt and a motorcycle jacket. He had all these different masks, and they would kind of fit the albums. It was like he was doing world building. Are you showing us your masks?
Oh, yes. I collect masks as well for obvious reasons.
Yeah. Masks. Yes, there you have it.
Yeah.
And sometimes he had a mask of being straight. Sometimes he was more open about being gay. It was something that he definitely spent a life searching for belonging.
Yeah.
And in that search, because he didn't follow these neurotypical scripts of like, this is boy, this is girl, get married, whatever, get engaged, get married. people would make up stories about who he was. Like I mentioned before, about how he was like the leader of the band. And there was a journalist who said, you've got this really strong, arrogant image on stage. You've put more human into it now, but is this strong arrogance who you really are, or is it a defense? And this is what Freddie said in reply.
This is quite the reply. Yes, you're right. I have to fight that. If you talk in terms of trying to get a relationship together, I'm the nicest person you can meet, my dear. It's just that I am handicapped. Interesting. And therefore I have to virtually sort of fight my so-called stage persona, a mask. Most of the times it sort of works against me. That's the thing, and I have to fight that all the time. The funny is, like, I created the monster. I mean, I built myself up for one side, but then I have to find somebody to accept that in terms of a relationship is very hard. To try to segregate the two in them, it's not easy, you know. It's like two sides of a coin, I mean. I think over the years I've become bitter because I've sort of learned more, and it makes you strong. And I've become bitter, and I just sort of, I don't trust anybody because they've let me down so many times. The more you're let down, the more you're hurt. I feel I'm walking around with scars all over the place, you know. I think I wouldn't take another scar. This is very much like the Taylor Swift episode.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, go through this. Freddie is your client. This is like 2 years of autistic-centered therapy, right? This is why people come to autistic-centered therapy?
Yeah, because the mask is the mask dominates. And when you're living the mask, there's no room for you to live yourself, because if the mask brings safety so that you won't be hurt, because you know the mask can take the slings and arrows, but you can't, because you can't be hurt again, and you keep people away with this mask of arrogance and competence, and you can't be vulnerable. And part of living is being vulnerable and being accessible to other people and forming these genuine bonds that are impossible with this gigantic, thick mask.
Yeah.
It hurts.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I noticed, because there are not many interviews. I watched all of them that I could find. There really are very, very few. But I noticed, and in that quote you read, you could hear it a little bit, but I edited it because it would have been really annoying. But first of all, he does some amazing stuff where he'll go off track. But second of all, he really like starts a sentence and then switches again and starts a word and doesn't finish. And if you're looking at his facial expressions, he's like super blank. It's like he's disassociating. It could be an autistic accent, but it felt to me like he was really in like a disassociated space when asked questions. So maybe alexithymia.
Yeah. Or just trauma from the masking.
Yeah. So
and
the biggest thing he was interviewed about was why he didn't like interviews. And here's what he said about that.
How, because I hate them. Oh, sorry, go on.
No, you go. This is why he doesn't like interviews.
Because I hate them. I don't like talking to people I don't really know. It's the media. They built me up being a real tyrant and an ogre because of the way I come across on stage. I'm very volatile, big emotions, and that's the only part of me that they see, and I don't want everybody to see that, so they don't know the real me, and I don't think anybody ever will.
I mean,
yeah. And that's the thing, like you were saying about, you couldn't be autistic enough because you had a job. A lot of people like Taylor Swift and like Freddie Mercury and, a lot of people have these jobs and the positions where they're able to hold it together and mask and have this air of competence, this air of supremacy, and they're able to go together, do all these many things, but that makes it even harder for them to be vulnerable and to let people down, and that's a form of trauma because they can never ever be themselves and relate to people. That sucks.
Yeah And so much of that creativity and masking is born from this need for protection.
Yeah.
How can I survive this? And another thing that we have talked about that is a big part of autistic culture is drug use.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get super into this, but obviously Freddie Mercury did a lot of drugs. I believe it was self-medicating. Elton John said Freddie could out-party him. So,
Wow.
Yeah. So there's that. But he also described himself as a shy person, and members of the band said if he could be anywhere, he'd want to be home with his cats. So
I feel you, Freddie. I feel you.
right, for sure. Obviously we have talked about just the power of this fandom, but I thought this was pretty cool. The Queen fan club has been going strong for over 50 years. And the Queen fan club has collected another gotta catch 'em all for Freddie, and that is it has the world record, the Guinness Book of World Records record for longest fan club ever.
Really?
And my husband was a member as a kid, and so we just looked it up. His membership has long lapsed, but he said, "Oh my God, Jackie is still running it." So Jackie, if you hear this, she has been running it for at least as long as my husband has been a fan, which is over 40 years. Holy cow. Every year they do. Yep. Every year they do a birthday party for Freddie in Montreux, Switzerland, where that famous statue of him holding the mic is. There's tribute bands. There's an annual 3-day convention that they've been doing for like 50 years. But this is why I think their fandom is so epic. One of their goals was to include the misfits in their band. And so Freddie talked about wanting to give the audience a role so that they could perform. So, We Will Rock You.
Boom, boom, boom,
that was the part that was written for the fans.
Aww.
And the Radio Gaga, it's another one.
Oh, yeah.
All we need is Radio Gaga, Radio Goo Goo. That part, the clapping, was written for the fans. And when he does his vocal warm up, and there's a call and response, super famous from the Live Aid. That was completely intentional. They're like, we need another member of this band. I will call them the audience.
Oh, that's so cool.
Now I forgot which one. I'll try and remember to put this in the show notes, but I watched so many videos. One of their videos, and this could be true for multiple, but one of their videos we were watching, there is a whole bunch of people in black robes, and this is obviously before CGI, people in black robes holding candles. And we were watching it, and my husband just casually said to me, "Oh, those are all fans. They sent a letter out to the fan club saying, do you want to be in a video? Can you come for the filming, bring a black robe and a candle?" And so I am guessing, I don't know, that's the only one he mentioned, and I didn't write it down, but they included their fans as often and in as many ways as they could.
That's fantastic.
So I just think that is amazing. All of that hyperfixation on creating a new mask for every album, creating a new world for every album, creating new costumes, creating parts for the audience, all of that, not surprisingly, would take incredible hyperfixation. So Freddie would lock himself in rooms in his bedroom in the recording studio for days and days. He did not go to the bathroom. He did not eat. It is on record. He would go days without sleeping. Often he would sleep less than 4 hours in a 2 or 3 day period.
Because who needs to listen to your meat body, right?
Right. Yes, exactly. So he had some executive functioning challenges. I mentioned earlier, this is a fun story. I mentioned that he was a fan of the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, yeah.
And that role, Dr. Frankenfurter, who is a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania, boom, boom, was played by Tim Curry in 1975. That was written for Freddie Mercury.
Oh, wow.
He did not play the role, but he did become friends with Tim Curry, who is a keen horticulturist. Did you know this?
I did not know that.
So he's friends with Freddie and he's like, dude, you need a garden. That's what your problem is. So he spent days and days in his own hyperfocus at Freddie's house doing all this gardening. Freddie loves it. He goes on tour. He comes back. He invites Tim Curry over for a drink. And Tim Curry says, the garden, dear, it's dead. And and then he said, did you water it? And Freddie said, water it, dear? Like executive functioning challenges much. He couldn't water himself. He did not feed or water himself. Never mind the garden.
Oh, wow.
So,
yeah.
So yes, so that was definitely, I think it's a great thing. I think many of us share this. He never got his driver's license. So high functioning, level 1 for sure couldn't drive. Luckily he could afford a chauffeur. Yeah. One of the reasons he wanted to make money is he knew he needed a lot of executive functioning supports. He couldn't keep a garden. He couldn't cook food or, keep a house clean or drive. And he definitely needed staff for that. So,
yeah. And again, when rich people do it, they're considered great. But when poor people need it, it's considered a shame.
A massive inconvenience. Try harder. Oh my goodness, I have so much more. I guess I will share one or two more facts I thought were fun. I mentioned 23 cat suits were sold. He was very, very, very particular about the cut. If you look at his clothes for each era, they look very different, but they're all identical. They're different colors, but they're the same fabrics, the same materials. And they were all because he was super sensory sensitive. And one of the things that was really important to him to function was tightly fitting clothes. So that's some proprioceptive difference. But what is that compression thing? I think it's the same thing as people who need like weighted blankets.
Yeah. Because it gives you a sense of security and being tightly hugged as opposed to, especially if, you have loose ligaments and your body could go loosey-goosey at any moment. It holds you together.
Oh, it's like K-tape for your whole body.
Pretty much.
Oh, I did not know that. My loosey-goosey son has K-tape in every room because he's always finding he needs to tape a joint together. If he's like going out to dinner, he'll be like, maybe I will tape my elbow together for this meal. I might use my fork too hard.
Because otherwise it just falls all over the place and you have to put it back in, and you don't want that.
And so, of course, that would feel good. I am definitely not in the tight clothes realm. So I'm like, why would you pick all these tight, scratchy clothes? But he wanted to be held. He also said if he felt sweat drip, he didn't feel sexy and he couldn't perform. Wow. And so with the tight clothes, they had like a wicking factor to them where he wouldn't feel the sweat dripping. They might feel wet, but like sweaty spandex just felt like tight clothes. It didn't feel like, he said he didn't want to feel rivers running off him.
I don't blame him. That would be unpleasant.
Yes. Especially when singing and dancing and
doing opera, yes, as one does.
And doing opera. So, I really don't want to dwell on AIDS or how he handled AIDS. I do think that was obviously very important if you're doing a retrospective on Freddie, but I'm really looking at Freddie in autistic culture. And I don't necessarily think there's a part of that relates, but I do think the last thing I want to share in this episode, and there are about 50 pages of notes I didn't get to, so here's to info dumping husbands. But
this is the
it
way.
is about burnout. So one of the ways he tried to prevent burnout was always changing it up. So ballet and opera, and he did a disco album and rock, and he partnered with Billy Squier and Michael Jackson and David Bowie. And that would keep things fresh for him. If he just did the same thing, it was like super burnouty. But one of those collaborations with David Bowie is the song Under Pressure. And I thought this really captured what autistic burnout feels like. That was during a burnout phase for him. And it was during a burnout phase where he actually took some time off, tried to make a solo album, sort of failed. But before that, he did Under Pressure. These are some of the lyrics. You can just pick out your favorite or share my favorites here, which I'm sharing with you.
Oh. Pressure. Pushing down on... I'll try not to say it. Pushing down on me. Pressing down on you. No man asked for. Under pressure. That brings a building down. That's the terror of... Oh, no, that brings a building...
That's the terror of knowing what this world is about.
Watching some good friends screaming, let me out. Pray tomorrow gets me higher. Pressure on people on streets, chipping around. Kick my brain round the floor. These are the days. It never rains, but it pours. Turned away from it all like a blind man. I can't do the... Sitting like on the fence, but it don't work. Keep coming up with love, but it's so slashed and torn. Why? It's sanity laughs. Under pressure, we're breaking. Can't we give ourselves one more chance? This is our last dance. This is ourselves. Under pressure.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I will shout out Taylor here one more time, because since our last episode, she came out with a new extremely autistic album, and she wrote a song called I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, which is her version of Under Pressure. I can do it with a broken heart. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. And I think that is the resilience of our culture. That's not to say you're a bad person if you're not resilient in any moment. But many of us have had to learn to keep going despite incredible pressure that no holistic person could even imagine. And yet we very often keep going. We don't all make it. And there's a reason our life expectancy is younger, but is lower.
36.
Yeah. But I think, and Freddie Mercury was 45. And again, he didn't, die because of his autism, but the masking, which led to maybe some unsafe sexual practices, the rejection that led to difficulty in trusting and being able to build relationships. It's not a coincidence that he's an autistic person who died young. It's not a direct cause, but it certainly is correlative that our average age of death is younger because we are dealing with a lot more.
We're under pressure.
We're under pressure. Yeah. What keeps us going? What is balm for the soul is love of friends, family, and fictional characters or people like Freddie Mercury. So if he is one of your special interests or your passion areas, like he had Caballé, Montserrat Caballé, or Japanese art or cats, pursue those with vigor like Eddie Mercury did. Jesus Christ.
Now I want to create the character Eddie Mercury and
Okay.
Yeah.
To meet Eddie Mercury, please become a paid member. We will be introducing our new mashup characters soon. They'll be in bobblehead form. But pattern recognition, the way his hypermobility led to such incredible dancing, his honesty, being unapologetically himself, the sense of community and the generousness that he created for his misfit fan base. the hyper focus that allowed him to get stuff done, the divergent thinking, whether it was in gender or layering 300 sounds to create a 6-minute song, which is just unheard of. That is the legacy. That's your legacy, Autistica. We share this. This is autistic culture. And, you know, if Italian culture gets Frank Sinatra, you get Eddie Mercury. You get Freddie Mercury, my friends. I am just so proud to be a descendant of that incredible legacy that he leaves as a musician. And I am a bigger fan today. I hope you are too. Are you a bigger fan today, Matt? That's my question.
Absolutely. I was a big fan to start with, but now I know all this. It's great, and now I want that auction book. So.
Yes, yeah, that's about all we can afford from that auction.
Yeah.
That was, I wanted to buy my husband the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody, where it was once called Mongolian Rhapsody, and you could see in his writing he wrote Mongolian Rhapsody. They went for 1.38 million pounds, so not really in my budget right now, but you know, maybe the podcast will take off.
Yeah. Well, we'll get sponsored by chicken nuggets and be drowning in riches. It'll be great.
That's the answer. We're going to get a percentage share of every McDonald's. Anyway, other than this info dump, Matt, what did you love about being autistic this week?
Well, I can't say much about this for obvious reasons, but I fought ABA and saved my son from ABA this week, and it has been a months-long struggle. But it finally happened, and my mind is lighter, my soul is lighter, and my son will be having a better life because of it. So I can't say much more about it for obvious reasons, but you can fight and you can win, and life is better.
Yeah. I know this has been so hard for you and pushed you to a lot of pressure, the brink of burnout many times. And there are a bunch of things that autistic centered therapy can do where you can like avoid some of this stuff, but also life just lifes at you. Yeah. And sometimes you got to get through it.
There were a few episodes there where my voice was horrible because I was fighting a cold for like 3 months. Because of all the stress, but it's things are better now. So,
and I think you took out a printer in the process.
Yes, very much so. Because
rest in peace, that printer. It had a lot of work to do. There were many things to print.
Oh yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, I wish that there could not be fights like that, but if you are someone who has the energy and the spoons to fight it, which some days I think Matt doubted he was, but we gotta fight when we have the spoons, because there's a big boulder we gotta push up a hill.
Yeah, our kids are worth it.
Yeah, and for sure, Emmett is. I am glad we are done with the ABA phase of his life, and it was relatively short and only included a little bit of vomit. So
oh man.
Thank you guys so much for listening. We love and appreciate your support, your comments. I will say one of my favorite things about this podcast is the community and all your love. And Matt, you were voted as the person most likely to be wished to be somebody's dad. So all of the listeners want you to fight for them too and be their dad. There are many people talking this week in Autistic Connections. You can find a link if you want to join in the discussion on how they wish Matt could be their dad. Do you wish Matt could be your dad? Put it in the comments over at autisticculturepodcast.com. Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Autistic Culture Podcast.
If you like this show, you can help other people find it by taking a few minutes to rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts.
You can find out more about writing your book with me at differencepress.com. That's difference, DIFFERENCE, press, PRESS.com.
Or getting a psychological evaluation or consult with me at www.mattlowrylpp.com. That's MATT, Matt, Lowry, Lowry, LPP, as in licensed psychological practitioner.com.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember,
no one ever changed the world by being like everyone else.
Special thanks to our content manager, River Robbins, and Aaron Stoner, our producer, for making us look and sound good.